Hello, my name is Ella Irby, and I want to share with you some of my experiences from my childhood growing up. I grew up in a small county named Sherrill in Arkansas. It's not too far from Pine Bluff, Arkansas. I grew up in a rural area on a farm, and from there my parents moved to Wabeka, Arkansas. It's about maybe 30 miles away from Sherrill. So when I first began school, I was in a public school in Wabeka. And at the time I was hearing. I was not deaf then. I hadn't lost my hearing yet. So I went to that school for about 4 years. And I remember going there. There was a girl there that was deaf, and she wasn't allowed in the classroom with the others. She was isolated due to behavioral issues. I remember she couldn't go to recess or lunch. We only see her at recess and lunch. And her brother and sister would pick her up from school every day. She was just shut off from communication. She wasn't allowed to sign. She was always nodding her head and smiling. So by the time I was 9, I lost my hearing and I was deaf. I didn't have an interpreter. I didn't have anyone to help me communicate. I lost all communication with everyone. So my parents began to look for a school. And they sent me to Little Rock, Arkansas. And that same girl ended up going to the same school as me as well. So this was around the time I was 10 around this time. So I remember walking into the classroom and looking around at everyone and all the signers. Everyone was deaf and they were just so fluent. Their skills were amazing. And for me, I had never seen sign language before. I fingerspelled a little bit. But I figured, as I continue going, every week I'll learn little by little and my fingerspelling will improve, and eventually I'll be able to make friends and blend right in with everyone else. But boy, was I wrong. They were not as accepting. I mean, it's a hard language to learn. I had no experience whatsoever. I didn't even know where to begin. And I remember our teacher, she didn't sign at all. I remember sitting in the classroom and she would stand in the front of the classroom with her back towards everyone, making an extensive list on the blackboard. And the point of it was I remember her standing in front of the class with her wooden stick pointing at everyone as it was their turn to go up on the board and copy the words. Like weather words such as rain and snow, vocabulary words. And I remember they would sign behind her back, but we weren't allowed to sign. But the teacher knew no sign language, so. And I remember my other home economics teacher. And I remember I would try my best to learn how to do things in that class, sewing and cooking and cleaning. I remember watching her sign and asking for help. I would still use my voice, but she was deaf. But she would voice for me and try to accommodate since she knew I struggled with that. I remember sitting in my math class, and the teacher was hard of hearing, but lived more in the hearing world. He would sign a little bit, but they still were more accustomed to the hearing world. She would do the same thing that my homeroom teacher would do and just write vocabulary words on the board. And I remember thinking we would do math problems such as like 2 plus 2. And I remember having already done that. And I felt kind of awkward. But, I just went along with it. And just accepted it. So later on, I had a speech therapy class. And again, the teacher would write on the board, and she would just sit there and just read the newspaper all day. And the kids would just be acting up, and I remember using my voice, and my teacher heard me, and it caught her attention. She noticed that I could talk, and it was clear. And I began to voice with her. And she was telling me she wanted me to read her lips. She was going to teach me how to lip read. And I thought, good deal. But then I realized all the students and all of my friends didn't really like that I did too much, and they began to tease me and the teacher as we mouthed to each other. And they would mock me. And I remember just feeling so offended. I felt ridiculed. So then I just stopped voicing. And my teacher told me, she just insisted that I not learn sign language and continue learning how to read lips. But I remember one day, I was teased so bad. And I remember I should just tell the teacher exactly how I feel. And I remember the teacher coming up to me and mouthing to me. And her becoming frustrated with me about my dire need to learn how to voice, to lip read. I thought to myself, I don't want to be the only one. None of my friends do it. I don't want to do it. I felt pressured.